Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. So there's an internet, trend going on right now to pick a beverage and a firearm to reflect your political views. Now, I was thinking about this for a while because I think that's an interesting idea because a beverage, if you think about something like, in the one I'm going to pick here in a little bit, I'll explain better. A beverage kind of tells you your attitude, like how mellow you are, what kind of, if you're wholesome or not, because you could like choose milk or something like that. And then the firearm. Now, this is where I had I'm going to have to pick two or three between the beverages and the firearm to make sure I get my political views kind of rolling all in the same direction. The first one I thought of for this internet trend would be a bottle of Sam Adams and an AR-15. Now, let me explain why I chose an AR-15 instead of an AK for the first one. The Sam Adams was one of the original founders of our country, one of the original patriots of our country. And as far as I'm concerned, the AR-15 is America's rifle. So the patriotic side of me, the one that loves the American ideal, that's one of the reasons why I chose that for the first one. Now the second one that I could see me choosing is kind of, it's going to seem like it's founded in World War II stuff, but it's not. Would be another beer, would be like Polliner, because that's my favorite beer. It's my absolute favorite beer, but it's not my table beer. Sam Adams is my table beer. It's the one that I keep because I can get it all the time. Polliner, Oktoberfest, I can't find all the time. It's only during special occasions that I can usually find it, usually around Oktoberfest in northwest New Mexico. Or if my brewer friend makes his version of the Oktoberfest, which is almost, I would say, I can't tell the difference nowadays between Polliner and the other one. But that rifle would, and I don't know why I would choose just another German rifle, but would be an HKG-3. Now, you could take that and say, well, is that Nazi connotations, or is that... No, it's because it's two of my favorite things. So there's no politics there. If anything, if there's Germans, they're kind of apolitical. They back off. They're not usually political after World War II. They haven't been for years. So I was thinking about the third one that I would pick. And it's kind of a mix of the first one. But then I would add a Kalashnikov. Now, why would I choose that? Again, Sam Adams, being a patriot, being one of the first guys that was in the American mix. That's why they named the beer after him. But I pick a Kalashnikov. And the reason why I would pick that is because it is the arm that has been, how do I put it, used to fight resistance and insurgents by insurgents for 70 plus years since its invention. And that's how I feel nowadays, is that while I love the AR-15, the AR-15 represents the American establishment, the American military industrial complex. Where the Kalashnikov, to me, represents the rifle you would keep in the rice paddy, and if you needed it, you would pull it out, clean it up, and get it ready to go. That's a peasant's weapon. It has been used by, it's on the flag of Mozambique, because it helped them during their revolution. It has been known around the world as the first gun you should give a child, because it is bulletproof and, well, it just works. That's why it's got its reputation. Now, when I picked these 3 rifles, now I think it's funny that I'm picking these 3, and one of them is totally kind of a pacifist country nowadays. It didn't used to be. But that's kind of how I noticed my political leanings being, is that neither party really is paying attention to us anymore, and hasn't for a while. But there's this love of my country that I can't get over. I guess it was indoctrination by growing up in America, probably during some of the best times our country's ever seen. Despite the 80s recession, despite the economic woes we had in the 90s that ended up being probably a boom for the country more than it was a bust. Setting up the 2000s where it was really good for our country economically until, you start looking at the bank failures. But you can look at that and go, compared to the rest of the world, if you compare this to, I'm just going to say it, when Trump was in office, the economy was booming right up until COVID hit. And that's what makes me think that this COVID stuff was, well, not just COVID, but the policy positions that people are taking nowadays in the political parties are very anti-human. And what I mean by that is you look at the outrage over abortion being kind of limited unless it's the state actually says it's okay to do up till birth, like New Mexico does. Okay? That's one side of the political fence. On the other political side of the fence, you have these guys that keep saying, we're for limited government, and we're for limited government spending. Yet they keep increasing their spending, keep making the economy worse by spending the government spending. By what that does is it increases the inflation, which is just another tax, and taxation is theft. That's what leads me to Sam Adams. It was a 3% tax on tea that started our country, in essence. That, and then wanting to pull away firearms from the normal average people, even though they were allowed to have them in England, because they knew that we were getting to that point in our country. Now, I'm a firm believer, like Tim Pool has said, that we're in a cold civil war. And you can't see that the situations going on in the political spaces, the cultural differences, or culture war differences, I should say, without seeing in kind of a very stunning, very vibrant way that we have 2, possibly 3 cultures in the United States, and one of them is screwing up everything for everyone else. These are the ones that get really offended at everything. These are the woke crowd. Okay, these are the rabble-rousers that have taken over the liberal side of the house and have started turning them into clowns. So much so that you're seeing even Biden having to back away from some things. Case in point, they have their Pride thing. This is supposed to be June, or Pride, which is gay pride stuff, is supposed to be everywhere. It's supposed to be the trendy thing if you're in business to show that you're cool. You throw the flag up, the Pride flag up, and it's supposed to show that you're all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. For the first time in my life, since I've known that Pride was a thing, you're seeing people push back and say, no, that rainbow is ours. It's a sign of God's covenant that he wouldn't destroy the world again. Now, or flood the world again. Now, I'm of the volition that that latter part is true, But at the same time, for years, people have tolerated this. Now you see that what finally tripped the trigger to make people go no was when they started pulling in kids and starting involving kids in drag shows and everything else. Now, for years, this has been happening. It wasn't until pictures and videos started being shown and reporters started going out and showing what lewd acts were going on at Pride events. Now, I've been to 2 Pride events because I have friends in that community, and I saw that stuff. I've seen the kink stuff, but I didn't see kids. Usually that was something, done in closed circles, so to speak, because we had this decency, I guess, that we were expecting when you were in public. Well, that decency is eroded. And now you're seeing people do really lewd and lascivious acts in public. And now that people think that it's so cool to bring your kids to these events, and now little kids are being exposed to this, and the other sides of the house are seeing this and going, oh, hell no. You've been doing this? Now we see it? No. The worst thing that, kind of a volition, this is probably the best thing that's happened in the United States. The worst thing that side could have done was start messing with kids. Now, why do I say it's the best thing? Because it's waking a lot of people up, especially after COVID stuff that happened where we were already on the rocks looking at the government going, oh, hell no. Now we're seeing in rose-tinted glasses ways that they are, in fact, the bad dude. And they have been the bad dude for a very bad long time. And when I say Biden backing off a policy, so they had a Pride event where they hung the flag of the pride flag in between 2 American flags. That breaks flag code. They're not supposed to do that. It also starts to look like a state-sponsored religion. And if there's anything our government shouldn't be doing, even though I'm a fan of Jesus and I have faith, you shouldn't be forcing religion down someone's or the country itself, because that's how our country was designed, was not to be a religious sect or have a state-sponsored religion. And anyone that looks at that flag nowadays can't see how they hang it. It reminds me every time I see all the streamers everywhere of what happened in Nazi Germany. You can comparatively see where they're putting the flags in the same places, in the same quantities or similar quantities, that this is now a state-sponsored religion just like Nazism was. You're seeing it spread across the globe. And in the UK, if you haven't seen the video, there's someone who climbed up to get rid of the Union Jack, the British flag, in favor of just letting the pride flags hang. Now, when Trump wasn't elected in 2020, I had the feeling that if he hadn't been elected, if he was elected, let's put it this way. If he was elected, we'd have at least another 4 more years of house cleaning for him to figure out what's been going on that side of the house, because this is stuff that I have known about and hasn't been talked about a lot. And then seeing the culture warriors of their side, of the left side, being as violent and militant as they've always been, but seeing it through the Ferguson riots and seeing it through the Antifa protests and seeing it through what's now called Trans-Tifa, because there is a group of Antifa now that has affiliated themselves with the trans community. And these guys are just as violent, if not worse, than Antifa is. Now, Why does that come up when I'm talking about a beverage and your political views? Well, the last one, as I was saying, is more American Patriot with Sam Adams and a Kalashnikov. But I look at the Kalashnikov as the anarchist rifle, as the one for the people that just wanted to be left alone. But if you push it enough, that rifle's there to be used. Now, am I advocating for any violence right now? No, absolutely not. I'm not convinced that we're at that violent place yet. And I say yet because, in my humble opinion, it won't be long before the government will go even further, and that we will have to open up that fourth box, that old fourth cartridge box that they gave us. When our founding fathers formed our country, they gave us 4 boxes to control the government. The first one is the soapbox, to get up and speak your mind, freedom of speech, and protest. The second one was the ballot box, such that you could elect representation that reflected your views and your values, and that would keep the government, or be the government. The third box is the jury box, such that if we ever got into a place where people were in legal problems, we would be able to, as a jury, have a jury of our peers to preside over our case and let it be found that we're okay, that what we did was not illegal. And the last one is a cartridge box. Now, if you look at what our government has done, the First Amendment, you're hearing calls from places, people in the government and on the left side of the house, that certain types of speech should be censored. That's not supposed to happen. So check the uh-oh box. If you look at the ballot box, they changed the rules during COVID to put their thumb on the scale to allow the election to be swayed in such a way that was advantageous to the neocons and the establishment machine. Mind you that when I talk about this, I'm talking about the deep state. Now, when people talk about the deep state, they're like, well, this is a secret government. No, it's not a secret government. It's a government. We've seen them forever. It's all the bureaucrats that have been in power, or these are unelected bureaucrats. These are guys in like the FBI, the head of the FBI. These are appointees. These are people that have been working in their job for the federal government to where they're almost to the point of retirement, or they're sticking around so they can retire. So, again, the will of the people has been subverted. The jury box. You can't look at the oppression that's happened to certain people like Daniel Penny right now, where he just defended some people on a subway, didn't even use a firearm, and he was indicted last night. You can't look at the strife where it looks like a sitting president who wants to be a dictator. That's what Fox News said. I think that's kind of funny. That Fox News finally had enough balls to say something like that. But that's after Tucker, so they're trying to get their audience back. But it looks like Biden's trying to get rid of his political opponent. The cartridge box. Now, this is the one that is the safety check that has been put in for everything else. If everything else fails, this is the last box we're supposed to use. In that vein, you can't look at this political climate right now and see that they're not actively going after that cartridge box to stop that in case they push that stupid button and people finally get fed up. Now, what do we do to fix it? Well, for the first time, you're seeing people vote with their dollar. You're seeing people push back and protest as counter-protests. we've seen that a little bit during COVID, but now we're actively seeing it in a mass fashion. If you hadn't heard, another thing that happened last night or yesterday was there's an entire Michigan city that has banned the pride flag from any of their government buildings. Now, here's where this gets funny. This town has a majority Muslim population. Now, Muslims are extremely conservative. Believe it or not, they're very much around the family and they're anti-gay. The importation of other cultures into our society in the United States has led to an unintended consequence. Muslims and Hispanics are traditionally family-oriented, family-centered. And when you start attacking the family, even they will shift to the right. Okay? Now, when Trump was in office, he appointed several judges. And that's how we're winning court cases like Roe v. Wade being overturned, like the Bruin decision and the Heller decision in favor of the Second Amendment. Now, ultimately, we need the Justice Department to do something and intercede on our behalf and make the government stand to heel, but that hasn't happened yet. And last, the cartridge box. The lack of compliance with the pistol brace rule that the ATF arbitrary put in gives me hope in that we are finally moving in a direction where the American people are not going to take it anymore. And that's why I think this little meme reflects a little bit of American culture in that you could pick a beverage and a firearm and you could probably get some of your political views across, and most of us might understand some of that. Now, a lot of people are going to pick the AR-15, probably because it's their favorite gun. But when I look at it, it has become the American modern-day musket. It is so ubiquitous in the United States. That's why it's used in these really horrible acts, is it is one of the most popular firearms in the United States. Thus, it's probably one of the most popular firearms in the entire world. And that reflects the American culture right now, or the American people, the American patriot to me. I picked two things for my first one, and it didn't even take me that long to think about the first one. Of Sam Adams, because I still am an American patriot, and to choose the American musket of today. So, I've given you some very succinct reasons why I thought this is kind of interesting, kind of fun. Tomorrow, I'm going to try my first live on Rumble, where I'll talk about the 28th Amendment again, but I'll give some more graphics and some more context around that. And I want to talk about the possibilities of where we go with the pistol brace stuff a little bit more. Like, share, subscribe, be great.